welcome back to the player updates. This is week 3 of the college football season. So I'm going to get into the guys that I focused on this summer. But before I do that, I want to talk about the interview we got to do this past week. We sat down with BGSU's star linebacker Gideon ESPN Lamprin, or I think it's pronounced Espen. And it was such a fun conversation. We got to learn about his motivation and his drive to play the sport. So if you haven't done that already, make sure you go and look at that interview and get to know him, because he's playing well this year without losing a step as he's moved up in competition. So let me get right into reviewing my guys. First guy, Clev Lubin, didn't play this week. Real easy. Next, we've got Isaiah Nokobia. Now, he had a very rough game, in my opinion. He looked slow and lost on the field. He missed tackles and was a liability in coverage. Those are all things that I am not used to seeing from him. So I'm a little worried, hoping that that's not a common thing, and hopefully this is just a one-off game. Now, I'm not sure who is currently playing quarterback for Clemson, but it's not the guy that I scouted this summer. Cade Klubnik, he just does not look like himself. His accuracy and decision-making has been bad. He looks like he's got nervous feet, like he's pressing. He did have some wide receiver drops, so that's not on him, but he wasn't playing well. It's hard to imagine him going round 1 after this start to the season, but who knows? Maybe he bounces back and regains that form, but it's not looking great. All right, then we get into Indiana's corner, D'Angelo Pons. So with him, this was a much better game. He was locked down in coverage. He only allowed 1 reception and 3 targets with a pass breakup, and he didn't miss any tackles. So that's what I want to see. That's the type of guy that I expect from him. Much better game. Whit Weeks was ejected. I guess it's technically a correct call, but it was a very weak targeting call. In my opinion, the NCAA needs to have a rule change for malicious versus incidental helmet-to-helmet contact. And you can still penalize them for helmet-to-helmet, but if it's not an intentional thing or a malicious thing, then you don't get ejected, because that was kind of ridiculous. Dante Corleone, unfortunately, is injured. He's going to be out probably for a couple weeks. Super upsetting, because this season to me was all about showing he was back to full health, and that's not starting out very well. Darius Taylor, our running back from Minnesota, I thought he was just in for one series last week because of the competition, but it actually turns out that he had a hamstring issue and is now probably going to be out for a little bit. So that's upsetting, because he was looking really good. Now, week 3 with Joe Royer. This was a really good game for him. He only played 25 snaps because it was a blowout against Northwestern State, I think. Him and Brendan Sorsby were connecting like crazy. He was 3 for 3 with 2 touchdowns, and he was also a very solid blocker. That's the type of all-around play that I want to see from him, and he's starting to look more and more like what I expected to see this season. All right. Now, Eric McAllister, wide receiver out of TCU. He has been disappointing so far. This is only their second game, but so far he's being outshined by transfers in Jordan Dwyer and Joseph Manjack. He's not getting a lot of separation, which is why he's not getting probably the targets. And his quarterback, Josh Hoover, is playing pretty well. So the fact that he's not doing well is pretty disappointing. So I'm not expecting that to change. It looks like the other guys have built the rapport very quickly with Hoover, and unfortunately it might be a rough season, and I might look wrong, because I was expecting him to take a massive leap this year. But now, Taron Tayo, my interior offensive lineman, my guard from University of Cincinnati. Week 3 here. Now, there were no pressures or sacks. and he was actually dominant in the run and pass game. Now, this was again against a very weak opponent in Northwestern State. So he looked how superior talent should look against a small school. That's why he looked so good at Ball State, is because he was better than most of the guys there. So the fact that he had his best game and he looked very strong against the run, which is a concern of mine for him, was encouraging, because he needs to do that against those smaller schools. Still needs to work on it for the bigger schools and the bigger talent, but that was an encouraging week. Now my guy Brian Parker II, our right tackle out of Duke. This was a very good overall game against a good Tulane team. He played 82 snaps and only allowed one pressure in a hurry. So that was a very strong game for him. And again, he's always been pretty solid against the run. So I still think he's a guard in the NFL, but he's doing very well for Duke this year. Now one of my favorite players, Mark Gronowski, the quarterback for Iowa. This was statistically a better game, but he still graded pretty poorly according to PFF. He was holding on to the ball forever, which is why I don't like a lot of quarterbacks, is when they hold on to the ball forever, and he was doing that. He had no big time throws so far on the season, actually. But he has plenty of turnover-worthy plays according to PFF, which is not a good thing. So I don't know if it's just Iowa was a bad choice for him, and it's not the offense that's going to highlight what he can do, or if he's just not capable of having the success he had against bigger competition. So unfortunately, I don't know that we'll ever know that, because this will probably be his last year. And unless he really turns things on, I don't think we're going to be seeing him on Sundays, unfortunately. Now, getting into John Michael Gillenborg. He had no catches, only one target, but also the QB play was atrocious. And Wyoming was playing a much, much better Utah team, and they looked completely outmatched. So I don't necessarily put that on him, but it is a little concerning that he can't put up some stats against better teams, because Harold Fannin last year played two of his best games against Penn State and Texas A&M, so he was still able to do it against the better schools, so you would hope that Gillenborg could do the same. Now my last player is David Bailey. David Bailey is getting the national attention now that I expected him to get as he transferred, and he is looking great. This week he had 6 pressures, 3 hurries, 2 QB hits, and a sack. He was an absolute nightmare for the O-line the entire game. And so far, over 3 games, he has a 25% pass rush win rate. He looks absolutely dominant, and I think he is going to shoot. I would say he's almost a lock for the first round right now, based off of what the rest of the NCAA is doing. I could be wrong on that, but he's definitely not getting out of day 2. So expect to see him go pretty high. I think the furthest he falls is probably that Donovan Azaraku range, which is like pick 44, I think, last year. So, good game for him, and a good season for him so far. But that's everything for this week. A lot of guys didn't play, whether that being injured or not having games. Like I said earlier, make sure you like and subscribe. Go watch our interview with Gideon Lamprin, and give us a follow. Have a good one.